Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Orange Bloods live on a Wednesday. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. He points a lot. I can't help it. But sometimes he'll point you right to the thumbs up button and the subscription button and the notifications button and maybe even the keyboard to go jump into the Specs chat. So always do that. I wasn't on yesterday. Apologies. But one of the things that we've been talking about on Monday was like, look, we're going to have the Texas offensive coordinator discussion. And it is one that people tap dance around. I think it is one that is very polarizing, Chad, in Texas football fans circles. Mm-hmm. I think it's a nuanced conversation. I don't know that my opinion is going to match the opinion of a lot of people in the chat and watching the videos. But given that Arch Manning had the performance that he had, in the opener against Ohio State, and it goes back to, well, Quinn Ewers was the last quarterback, and this is kind of the same stuff we were talking about with him, and it goes back to December and January when the offense in the biggest games of the season wasn't hitting on all cylinders, and the red zone problems and all of that stuff. And one of the questions that has popped up that is a conversation point. It's the thing that pissed Texas fans off, those that are really hyper-focused on like what gets asked of Steve Sarkeesian at press conferences on Monday. And we even did this a little bit on the show. Mm-hmm. It was like, man, they really want that whole press conference without anybody asking a red zone question? Because that is what is being discussed on Orange Bloods, which, by the way, got a shout out on ESPN yesterday because it is the place that people go to lose their crap whenever it comes to the Texas football universe online. So where do we even begin with this, Chad? Because in a vacuum, they just had a young quarterback, at least in terms of experience, inexperienced quarterback at the defending national champions, didn't have a good game one. Everybody settled down and let a larger sample size build? Or is there a rightful conversation 5 years in or going 5 years into Steve Sarkeesian about this that for you is a serious topic of conversation?
When we talked about it yesterday on the modcast, I think there's two sides of it for me. One, you're already into the season. I think it'd be obviously if you can't have the serious conversation right now because you're into a season, and if he makes the change in season, that feels desperate.
Well, yeah, and I don't mean now.
Right.
I mean,
but we're in an era, Catch, where the national champion is normally head coached by a team, by a guy that is not calling offensive plays. I went back and looked and thought about it. Jimbo did it in 2013 with Jameis. Urban Meyer did it in 2014 the next year. If you believe that's his offense and he called plays, I do. But there hadn't been one since. Not Saban, not Dabo. We can go through it all, right? Sark in 20 and Joe Brady in 19. Even Jim Harbaugh supposedly wasn't actually the play caller in 2023. Did he have a lot of good intel? Oh, yeah, he did. But apparently someone else actually called those plays, Catch, and he just stepped in on final say a couple times. So since Urban, and that's the beginning of CFP era, that's the one time, and since then we haven't had it. So for fans looking at it, this is an era where it doesn't normally happen, and it's a place where Texas has had issues. So what I keep thinking is after the season, if we watch this again, Catch, if we see it in Athens, if we see even a taste of it in Gainesville, and if fans feel like it cost them something, are CDC and the bigwigs going to make him have the conversation? That's what I keep wondering.
This whole thing, this is such a fascinating conversation because the tentacles of this, I'm going to start at the beginning, and eventually we're going to get to the finish line of this conversation, and I'm going to talk about, for me, the biggest sticking point is December and January and what it is we think we got or saw of Sarkeesian from a dedication standpoint to one part of his job at a time when it's the busiest time. It's like, it's like asking Santa Claus to clean the gutters in December. He's busy. But we have to start at the beginning with Tom Herman. When Tom Herman was hired, and I realized that this is dated, right? I mean, where we start the Tom Herman exercise in 2017, that was 8 years ago. So I am conceding that where we start is almost like in dog years, a lifetime ago in college football, although not completely. When they hired Tom Herman, what they thought they were getting in Tom Herman when they hired him was an offensive genius, a guru, a guy that would pull Texas out of the wilderness offensively, and that he would be in charge because that's what he does. That was his super skill. And literally in the first week of his first year on the job, he raised his hand at a press conference and was like, yeah, guys, I don't know how you guys know about this, but I don't really feel good calling plays and being the head coach at the same time. It is, in retrospect, I still think the greatest single record scratch at a Texas head coach press conference I have ever heard, because it dominated the next few years. And eventually Tom Herman did take control over the offense. The offense actually was better for it. But then when Tom Herman gets replaced, the feeling from the above was, we thought we hired an offensive genius, and we hired a goddamn guy that didn't even want to be the offensive genius. He wanted Tim Beck to be we did not hire that guy for Tim Beck to be the offensive coordinator or who the hell ever else he was going to bring in, right? So they hire Steve Sarkeesian. And when they hired Steve Sarkeesian, what they thought was fine margins. He, while not having a proven head coaching record, really, from an offensive genius standpoint, have you seen what he's done at Alabama? He's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He has all of this track record. Oh, by the way, he can recruit. He can do all of these things. But he's the guy that Herman was supposed to be. When they made that move and they made the hire of Sarkeesian, they thought he's what Lincoln Riley is supposed to be. Right. We got our Lincoln Riley.
And you had the fresh image of him calling the national championship in 2020 as that OC for Saban. It was fresh on their minds.
Bingo. He literally had just coached what a lot of people thought was the most exciting offense in the history of college football. And that was 1 year after LSU did what they did. To even think that that's a thing, considering what LSU was doing, speaks to how wide open and great they were on offense. So Sark is hired. But here's the thing about Sark, that before we get into what's happened since, it would be like Sark is a play caller. It is his baby. It would be like telling Ray Charles, hey, Ray, we got somebody else to play the piano. Just go sit on the stage and sing. The fuck do you mean? You got someone else to play the piano?
Right.
Ray Charles. Right? And Steve Sarkeesian, I'll never forget when he hired Brennan Marion, and we talked about this on the Monday Overreaction show with Anwar. He was asked in the spring, hey, you brought in Brennan Marion, and while he was at Pitt, he had what was called the go-go offense. And do you think you might incorporate even just a smidge from his offense to your offense to give it something new? And Sarkeesian was incredulous, like,
yeah, he was.
What?
This is my offense.
We're gonna be okay. I got this. So, when we have this conversation, I just wonder if Texas fans realize, for me personally, you're more likely to have him chop off his hand like Jamie Lannister, but voluntarily. And he wears the hand around his neck. To me, you're more likely to have Sarkeesian volunteer to chop his own hand off and wear it around his neck as like a tribute for the rest of his life than to take play calling out. It's his baby. Do you remember when we interviewed Al Green? And I was like, have you ever gotten tired of singing Let's Stay Together? And Al Green was like, whoa. That's my baby. The offense is his baby. And so we can have this conversation, right? But at the end of the day, my inkling is that it'd be over Steve Sarkeesian's dead body before he gives up the offense, because I don't know who he believes he could hire that's better than him. And that is the rub. Who in the hell are you hiring? Everybody in college football outside of the Texas bubble is like, oh man, when you see Steve Sarkeesian draw up plays and the formations and the movement and all of the things that he does, which, oh, by the way, a lot of people said was missing from the Ohio State game plan. A lot of the extras, the sweetener, the eye candy wasn't really there. Different discussion. But outside of Texas, the feeling is they have an elite offensive mind. At Texas fans are like, look, man, we've been waiting 5 years for good quarterback play to finally arrive. And we thought we were getting a top 5, top 10 offense in college football. And that is not what keeps popping up in the biggest games of the season. Hire a new coordinator, Sark.
Not knee-jerk at all. Jump in and give us a super chat if you like. We already got a couple chats in that I kind of dig. We will keep rolling here on a Wednesday. Got some folks to thank here.
But real quick, Chad, before we pay a bill, this is the question that I would say, guys, this is what I want in the comment section. You can do it in the live chat, but for those of you watching the video later, okay, blank checkbook. Who's Sark hiring at OC? We're going to continue this conversation. But it's the thing that I cannot answer. And don't be like, just go hire Kyle Shanahan or what, something. It can't be ridiculous. Who's the hire? Who's the guy in college football that Steve Sarkeesian goes, well, okay, if it's going to be somebody, it's this guy. I don't know who that is. I'm fascinated to know who it might be. Take over, Chad. I'm sorry.
We'll dig into the chat here in just a second after we thank the good folks at Deep Eddy Vodka for having us out last week. Get out there. Try that tasting room. Here's 3 examples of it. My wife's favorite is on the left. She loves that cherry limeade. I had the pineapple mule on the right. Our friend Sherry had that El Pepino. It's quite a beverage, as you can tell there, with the vodka, with the salt, the syrup, the cucumbers, the jalapenos. It's quite a highway, and it's quite a kick, too. Go try that one. Remember, bring your mason jars and martini glasses back for a discounted refill on your drinks. It's got to be, jar for jar and glass for glass. But go check out all the stuff they've got out there. Have that great barbecue that we did, Crimson Creek Smokehouse, Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Tell them you heard about it on OB Live. All right, no super chats yet, unless there it is. Sorry, my bad, Buck Wild. Look at Buck Wild. We've heard from Buck Wild in a while, our truck driving brother. Hope everything's safe out there. $10. Is it crazy to think that Sark's bland play calling was intentional? Maybe his overall goal is to win the SEC. He used Ohio State as a glorified scrimmage. Win the SEC and you're in the CFP. Just a thought. Oh my God. Buck Wild.
Here's what I think that people don't realize enough. Being a head coach just makes you more conservative. It just does. When you're a coordinator and you don't have the responsibility of everything, wide open play calling sounds awesome. Let me show off. I got to get a job. I got to get a head coaching job. Everybody's got to see how smart I am. When you become the head coach, suddenly you got your defensive coaches who are looking at you like, you ran a reverse where? When did you called that from the, you know what I mean? Like it's suddenly, so Steve Sarkeesian as a head coach with an inexperienced quarterback, with that defense, with unproven players all over the field that hadn't played in a full speed game with this group of, I think they were intentional, but I don't think in the way that you think, Buck Wild. I think he wanted to win that game desperately, and he thought a conservative, not asking too much of a bunch of new guys, because we don't talk about it enough. We've tried, but people don't always want to hear. It sounds like you're nitpicking when the team's ranked number 1 in the country and you're like, that wide receiving core is kind of inexperienced. Nobody wants to hear that. I just think that everybody, we talked about this last week, no matter what was going to happen in that game, the season was going to freeze once it's over. And they're going to enter the month of September. And it's just what the scheduling gods have given Texas. It didn't have to work out this way. The Florida game, they could have something weird, right? It could have been a non-conference game and then a random SEC game next and then there's all kinds of things they could have done. The month of September has turned into this unofficial round of preseason that I think will be excellent for the team. I think they will work out a lot of the kinks. And I think that if this conversation is taking place in October, then we actually know what's happened. And we probably have bigger problems than that. We're being completely honest, right? If at around time the Oklahoma game pops up, this is still the topic of conversation. Just shoot me now. Just shoot me now.
$5 super chat from, what was that? Dream C. I'm not even going to try it. 7290. $5. If Arch scored on a QB power, if Parker L completed that corner pass, are we having this convo?
Yeah,
Players got to execute too.
Because this isn't about winning or losing the game, really. This is about, okay, if Arch had scored the quarterback power, but let's just say they lose in overtime 17-14, are we not talking about the offense?
Yeah, and also
talking about the fact that Arch threw for 13 yards in the first quarter, 13 yards in the second quarter, and 12 yards in the third quarter. Punching that quarterback power run in doesn't change that. So, and it also doesn't change the fact that, look, man, there's a weird pile of Quinn Ewers fan club people who popped up this week and been like, hey, we'd won that game that Quinn had been playing. It's as if, well, in the 3 biggest games of last season, he wasn't a disaster, that he didn't get benched against Georgia, that he didn't lose to a fill-in young kid off the bench against Georgia in the SEC championship game, because the Texas offense in 5 of the 6 biggest games that it played last season, with all due respect to Oklahoma, we know what that game is from a magnitude standpoint, but they sucked. If you look at the games against teams that were good, with rankings and stuff next to them and the playoff games and stuff like that, Texas broke 19 points one time against Clemson. They did it against Arizona State, but they needed overtime to do it. So in regulation, in 5 of their 6 biggest games of the season last year, offensively, they couldn't score 20 points. Arch was supposed to fix that. Now look, coming out of it, we know the offense is going to be fine this week and next week and the whole month of September. What we don't know is against the few games on this schedule where there's some real viability of threat, what will it look like in those games? And that's what Saturday against Ohio State caused the Pandora's box, Chad, of question asking to be brought up. I think from my perspective, the answer is no. You got to ride Steve Sarkeesian. Because again, I don't know who you're getting that's better than Steve Sarkeesian, but I also, this is who you hired him to be. I don't want to neuter Steve Sarkeesian. I think ironically, he's a better program builder than they thought that they were getting, and maybe not quite the offensive genius and quarterback developer, at least in terms of results so far, than what they thought they were getting. My biggest concern really is December and January. It's when the biggest games of the schedule pop up in December and really January. What is Steve Sarkeesian, the head coach, being asked to do? And what, in a world where your head coach isn't the play caller, what would you want your offensive coordinator doing? Would you want that person to have any distractions at all? The answer is no. We want our offensive coordinator in the middle of a game week to be completely and centrally focused. Then I do have to ask, hey, because when we got to that Ohio State game in January a year ago, that wasn't what Steve Sarkeesian was able to do. And when the offense doesn't have success in January, it's real. That's the time when it's really fair to ask, is this the best way to do this? I actually don't think it's a big deal in September. But whatever we think happened in December, or excuse me, in September with Ohio State, the amount of clutter that he has to deal with as the head of the organization in October is different than September, but it's a hell of a lot different in January and December than it is in these early months. Like right now, recruiting's kind of on the back burner for everybody across the country. You bring in some guys on unofficial visits, Chad, but there aren't any new offers in the 2026 class that are really going out. We've seen the commitments, like 249 of 250 of the top best players in the country have already committed. So it really is about the season right now, but that will change. And to me, it's like, we're going to have a conversation about this in September. Let's make sure we point out that this really becomes potentially problematic as Sark being one of the only guys in the country tasking himself with this. For instance, it's possible that when the playoffs start, Sarkeesian would be the only head coach out of 12 that's a play calling head coach that makes the playoffs and is then asking himself to do everything else that all the head coaches in the playoffs still have to do.
To that chatter, I would also say they can call a play called quarterback power. I haven't seen one that looks like it yet. So they might want to actually make the play match the name. Not a lot of power in that play right now. The other super chat we have is this one. Nice basic one from Football Edits. The entire offense improves dramatically over the next 3 weeks. This will be a different team versus Florida. Just adding to the tip jar. Good show. Edits, I agree with the first part. You don't know about the second part. I think it's a different team against Florida. Yeah, you don't know that for sure. We hope that's going to be the case, obviously. And thank you for adding.
It's a bold prediction.
Yeah,
it's not even bold. I mean, he's not wrong.
They'll look better. Of course they'll look better.
No, it would just be a different team. The thing is, we don't know what the hell October looks like. I think we know. I kind of think about it differently than Football Edits did, in that, I mean, a whole bunch of stuff will happen by the time the Florida game rolls around. We'll have freshmen who weren't involved at all that might be potentially key pieces of the offense by the time that game rolls around. An injury or two might kick in. You know, there's just the one thing I agree with, that this team will be different. And I think in a positive way. Yeah. But Chad's right. We don't know. So, don't let the resident nitpicker with words, because they do matter. Don't get upset at Chad's OCD, but he's not wrong. Words do matter. Technically, he's right, even if I understand the spirit of which the comment was made in.
Just a couple of regular chats real quick. Sark needs to fine-tune his craft, take ownership, and make the necessary adjustments. Money B, I agree. And ultimately,
what does that mean, though? Like, what does it mean to fine-tune his craft?
That means don't hire an OC. That means CDC trusts Sark to do what you say Sark does well. Adjust, keep progressing.
In the last couple of off seasons, they've committed to improving the red zone. I mean, he's talked about it. This is a third straight off season.
And he just told you that they did. He had those stats ready to go, where it went from 50% at one point to a 64%. Like he would argue.
You know what that sounded like to me, Chad?
He's been willing to look.
When you try to tell a short person how tall they are, that's what it felt like to me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Am I wearing shoes or not shoes? Because 5'7" and 3/4 with in between the 3/4, and I'm almost 5'8". Don't be 5'7". That's what Sark sound. Don't. Whoa.
Right.
Dude, complain about the red zone as if our eyeballs don't tell us the story.
Yeah. To your question earlier, this is the answer ultimately if it's somebody. Ted says the trend is now to hire, prior NFL coordinators or assistants to win. I'll give you a name right now, Catch. If the season's right, but if the season's a disaster in New Orleans, is somebody going to want Kellen Moore to be their OC in college? That's a guy I think about. It's those type of guys. The dude that's at Bama now with DeBoer that came back to him 1 year in the pros, didn't work, and then he's in college. It's one of those type of guys that might be available that would Texas fans, again, if this keeps happening, would they look at Sark and say, hey, Sark, might be time to think about, little delegation. But I totally agree with he's going to say no until maybe somebody forces him to say, I don't know.
It just feels like the most insulting thing. Hey, BB, don't even bother bringing Lucille to the concert. You just watch. Yeah, lead the band.
Right, but
Sarkeesian doesn't know how to breathe without it being his offense.
Okay, but to your analogy that you've made twice now, what if when Ray sang Georgia, the piano didn't sound right? And what if when BB played The Thrill Is Gone, the solo sounded like crap? That's what we're talking about here. In the biggest moments of
but you then at that point, you're asking if you go to BB at that point and go, man, what you're telling BB is it's time for me to stop playing because this is the BB King concert and you're telling. So I don't know, man. I'm just telling you, look, I can intellectualize why it's a good idea. I can't intellectualize how Steve Sarkeesian, and I've always said that one of the things that I actually love about Sarkeesian is his ability to adjust on the fly. He's not a guy that digs his heels in and fights a losing cause because he's stubborn. But this is so close to home. It's so personal.
Right. But then, and this is the other, so here, a couple other quick chats. Somebody saying Sark better get an OC. Even Ryan and Kirby have OCs. Yes, Kirby's a defensive guy, but yes. This isn't, I don't know if we can go all the way this far, but here's one comment. Sark's offense is limited by Arch. Now
look, now one of the things that Sark has got to do a better job of.
I hadn't thought of that one.
Sark's got to start getting the most out of his talent. Yeah. And that has not been, at least at the quarterback position. That's not, the quarterback play hasn't been above average yet. Really. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the NFL scouts told us how average they thought it was. They got no skin in the game. If they thought that Quinn Ewers was a guy that should have gone on the second day, they'd have taken him on the second day.
Yeah.
I don't care what we're talking about on YouTube.
This is a question I know lots of fans at. Why don't we ever run play action when we're 3 yards or less from the end zone? Money B, that's the kind of thing, not just that, but it's play action and it's motions and it's all that Sarky kind of stuff that you don't see sometimes in those moments. We cleaned up the super chats. If you guys want to throw in a super chat, feel free. Let's remind you that watch party is back at TCH Social Austin. I thought we'd show you the big screen today. Also, I think it's fitting that I took a picture of Megan Trainor. We're going to see that commercial a lot at TCH Social this year. You've also got those in-game specials, the wing special, the rum punch special. Come see us, 183 and Anderson Mill. It's another 11 o'clock kick this week. And then remember, pile on in at the 2-minute warning. I give you a little heads up. This is a week where I feel like we're probably going to start the post-game show before the game actually ends. Just an insider tip from me to you. And shout out to Adam Lowy for sponsoring that post-game show. We will do it on Saturday, another 11 a.m. kick for Texas. So no super chats right now. If you want to throw in, you can certainly do it. We got buy or sell coming up here. And we're just right at buy or sell time. You want to jump into buy or sell right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, first or second?
I'll go second.
All righty. Well, then let's just get right into it. Buy or sell number one. You think at some point Sark will have an OC at Texas?
I'm going to say sell.
Okay.
Never's a long time.
Yeah.
But it's just hard for me to think that it happens soon. It's too hard for me to think like in 2035. I look at this through like the prism of the next few seasons, and I don't see it.
Okay. We're going to go from 3 top 10 matchups last week to 1 ranked matchup this week. Whew. And here it is. Buy or sell number 2. You're leaning OU over Michigan right now.
Buy, I think. I don't know. I don't like There are times this early in the season, and I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch either of those two teams last week. I was on the road for part of it. We're so hyper focused on UT. Yeah. So I don't know. I know what I know. Justice Haynes was awesome for Michigan. He was the guy that I thought was the number one running back in the country a couple of years ago in that CJ Baxter class. Whenever people would say Baxter's the number one running back in the country, I'd go, I don't know. I got Haynes ranked number one. And then he goes to Alabama. It doesn't work out there. He transfers to Michigan. Big game, big week one. I've got a Prize Picks play with him where I think he hits the more on, I think it's like 64.5. So, but I think I'll go OU, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, what a weekend for both those teams. It is the one game. Everybody else has handle your business stuff. There's a little bit of interest for me with like Ole Miss, Kentucky.
What time is that game?
It's a 6:30 kick. It's ABC, man. It's the only game, Catch. It's the only game of the weekend unless someone gets upset, but everybody's playing a handle your business game. This is OU's weekend, man. It's their chance. If Mateer's really good and Venables has a team, show it off. And for Michigan, it's the kid playing quarterback. It's the one game, 6:30 on Saturday. All right, Catch, let's peek into the NFL. Buy or sell number 3. You think the MVP in the NFL is one of the quarterbacks in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football?
Who's the other quarterback?
Well, that would be Lamar Jackson.
I didn't know. I don't do fantasy, so I haven't looked beyond tomorrow.
Fair enough.
Probably a buy. That was I saw Buffalo and I was like, well, I need Baltimore to be in the discussion, and that probably makes sense.
There you go. All right. Speaking of tomorrow night, buy or sell number 4. Philly beats Dallas by 14 plus tomorrow. Buy or sell?
Yeah, we're getting our ass kicked. We're not good.
I would agree. Catch, let's finish with one of the greatest Longhorn football players I've ever seen. Casey Hampton is 48 today. You can tell me what number he wore at Texas and with the Steelers.
Well, at Texas, he was what was Casey Hampton? 97?
He was not.
What was his number at Texas?
64.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God.
That's the one that jumped out of my head. I was with you. I was up in the 90s for both numbers, and I'm like, wait a minute, 64, really? But I'd forgotten that.
I totally forgot he was 64.
Yeah. And the Steelers, any guess there?
No, 99.
See, that's the one where I was up in the 90s. We both would have been right. 98 with the Steelers. So happy birthday to the great Casey Hampton. That's the best Texas defensive lineman these eyes have ever seen while doing it. He's just unbelievable. All right, Catch, what do you got?
Buy or sell number 1. They got Arch Manning's Prize Picks touchdown set at 2.5 for Saturday. Your gut tells you take the more. He might not hit 4, but he'll hit 3.
This is 2.5 combined of any kind of touchdown?
Passing.
Oh, just passing. 2.5. Yeah, buy. He's got to have 3 passing touchdowns in this game.
They got his passing yards in the 280s, and it's like, well, I feel like it'll be touchdown passes, not yards, that if he's going to have a spike, it'll be there, because I think we all think he probably won't be in the fully through the third quarter. It's a bad day if the fourth quarter begins and he's still in the game, but nevertheless. Buy or sell number 2. Longhorns forced 0 turnovers last weekend. They forced at least 3 this weekend against San Jose State.
Ooh, 3 sounds like a lot.
3 or more.
I will sell that. No, not 3 or more. I'll sell and say it's 1 or 2, but I don't know if it goes to 3.
You non-believer.
I mean, I think that's one of those weird stats for me. To go into a game saying a defense will force a turnover, that's just a stretch for me, and I'm not going to 3 though. I'll say it's 1 or 2, but 3.
So look,
a lot.
You did the post-game show with me, so you know where my general head was in the post-game.
Mm-hmm.
I did make a point, like on Saturday, to say defense was great. They did need to force a turnover or 2. They will look, but the defense will look at this game and say,
yeah,
even with the points and the yards, we are trained to make plays, and we didn't. So they'll feel like they could have done more. Certainly not the focus of my post-game comments. I wrote in my 10 thoughts from the weekend, I wrote like section 5 was explaining the defensive thoughts. And then we've done shows and there are people who are convinced that for the last 5 days, all I've done is blame the defense for the loss on Saturday.
Jeez.
Just because I said they needed to mix in a turnover or two.
Right. To be fair, so did the head coach.
That's what I keep saying. And they're like, he's just talking media talk. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
He said it. No, one person was like, he's just trying to fool people into not paying attention to his shitty red zone offense. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that.
Now that, I mean, come on. Mastermind, right? Total mastermind.
Buy or sell number 3. As of today, you like your Aggies to win 9 games this season. Because isn't the number 8.5? And it's whether
it's going to be somewhere in that range. Right now, I'd have to sell that. I've got to see. I'm on the search for substance with the Aggies, and that one game's not going to be enough to get me to believe that it could be there. South Bend's a huge test coming up. After watching South Carolina this week, they come to College Station. Florida goes to College Station. They got to protect home field in a big way. And when I look at those road games and what they've done, I can't get myself to 9. I want to catch. If they beat Notre Dame, then I'll tell you they may be able to get to 9. Right now, I don't think so.
All right. Buy or sell number 4. Tyler tweeted out Robert Henry Jr. from UTSA's. I saw your stat that a running back from UTSA averaged 11.1 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize the dude had 16 carries. Oh. Buy or sell number 4. What the hell?
Yeah, no, that was the buy. That's why it's the first thing out of my mouth from the game. Just huge chunks of yards. Catch, the second half began with A&M up 21-10. That felt a little closer than I would have liked it to have been. Then they handed Henry the ball, and he went 75 without being touched, and it was 21-17 like that. That Aggie defense is going to face Love and Notre Dame coming up in a couple weeks. It's what all fans do, but it's certainly what I was doing watching that moment. Like, is that going to be good enough in South Bend, gentlemen? So, yeah, it was concerning, and I would certainly tell the Texas State defense this week, y'all may want to tackle him because the Aggies didn't do it a ton. 11.1 a carry. Catch, you know what I might have done if I was Jeff Traylor? Give that dude the ball more. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Hey, give it a shot. 11, even before the big run catch, in the first half, he was at 8 yards a carry.
No, it's like if they tell after the game, it's like, why did you keep giving him the ball? It's like, well, he was averaging 11 yards per carry at carry number 16. It just felt like that was who at that point argues?
Yeah, I don't know how he didn't get 20 carries. That's all I know. I'm glad he didn't. Jeez.
That's like, and finally, buy or sell number 5. No caller. If somebody calls me in the middle of the show, why are you doing that?
Buy or sell.
Actually, Chad, pay a bill. I gotta take this.
Bill paying. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna take important enough. How about that? I like it. All right, let's do a little AV consultations talk here for you. Oh, wait, hold on. We don't want to hear Catch's audio. That's not good. There we go. AV consultations, 255-8678. I got my AV figured out there where I turn the sound off. If you need to figure out cables, the cords, the speakers, the screens, AV Consultations is the place that can make it happen. 255-8678 or go to avconsultations.com. If you go to big, watch parties around the area, you go to your friend's house and their screen's really cool. Or you go to Pluckers or Cover 3. That's a couple of the places AV Consultations hooks up. They set all of that up. They can do the same in your house. Also, security systems, indoor and outdoor lighting, indoor-outdoor security, your computer systems. They'll make sure it's all running safely. AV Consultations, 255-8678. Tell them you heard about it here on Orange Bloods Live. I got you muted there, Kat, just in case you said something super important on your phone call.
I'm good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. Everything good? We're finished. One
good.
More buy or sell?
Buy or sell number 5. You are more convinced that Dak Prescott either plays 10 games or less or plays a full season where he's not one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFC You're more convinced that one of those two things happen than he actually plays an entire season and is one of the. This guy was a runner-up to the MVP just a couple years ago. So top 5 NFC quarterbacks. You think it's much more likely, or more likely, I should say, that he either gets hurt or just isn't that good.
That was a wonderful, like, Cowboys fan buy or sell that you just walked everybody through.
I didn't type that out.
That was like a therapy buy or sell. And I buy. I think you laid it out perfectly. That is the way I think of Dak Prescott. Yes. That is absolutely the way I think.
I think Dak thinks he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
I think you might be right. I think
that irrational confidence helped him early.
Yeah, I think he thinks it. I think his receiver thinks it. I think certainly his owner and GM thinks it.
That's the problem. I'm worried that Jerry thinks that.
Here's the other part. Deep down, if you put truth serum in the new number 1 for the Packers, I don't think he believes it.
By the way, buy or sell number 5B. We hear the name Micah Parsons. If we set the Prize Picks number for the number of times we hear that name mentioned in the TV coverage tomorrow night at 33 and a hook, you'll take the over. You'll take the more.
Wow. It's a huge number you just threw out. 33.
And it includes the pregame.
Total mention, pregame. Oh, wow. Just for my sanity, I'm gonna sell. I'm gonna say it only. I'm gonna say it only gets to the high 20s. I'm gonna say it's only like 28 times. That's about it. I'm gonna take Darren Woodson.
I'm not looking forward. I just want to get tomorrow night over with.
No, it's gonna be like if I've had my first colonoscopy in my life. It's like if they had told me I had to be awake for the whole thing. That's what tomorrow night's going to feel like. Like, I don't get the nice nap. I don't get the no, we'll give you medicine and you'll just sleep and it'll be great. I don't get any of that. You're going to have to be awake for the whole thing and you're going to have to watch it through that camera. That's what tomorrow night feels like for me.
That sounded awful.
I mean, God. Plus banners and rings. I didn't even say banners and rings. They're going to get those too. Banner and rings. Night for the Eagles.
Good Lord. Jerry likes the pain, so it's all right.
He does. He likes the. I like the pain far less than Jerry does. I've definitely learned that. Let's hear from Specs, and we'll keep talking about Steve Sarkeesian.
Texans know for selection and lower prices, it all starts at Specs. Shop Specs! With all your favorites on tap, you'll bring home the win. Boots on, drinks up. The fun starts here. Shop Specs!
So, Catch, to the overall discussion today, when I think about the last 3 guys that have held the job, Charlie, Herman, and Sark, you hire them for a reason, but then does the reason have like little qualifications to it? You didn't hire Charlie to call the defense. You hired him to give you good defense. Same thing with Herman. And
elite,
now with
not good, elite.
Yeah, and now with Sark, what you hired him for is badass offense. You saw him call plays for a national champion. You expect badass offense that runs a certain way. You pointed it out, that develops quarterbacks and all that stuff. So there just may be a moment coming up, and he'll do it anyway, right? They could have a season that has nothing to do with red zone troubles, and it ends, and he thinks, man, do I still need to do this? Do I still need to call plays? Yes. I think he's going to say immediately yes. And what this all boils down to is he's going to keep tweaking. He's like a evolved, blue blood version of where like Mike Gundy was. I just don't think he's ever going to go to that other dude. Mike Gundy did at one point. Mike Gundy is, a guy that decided at some point, hey, I can't deal with all this. I got to back off and see it from a different perspective. I just don't know if Sark's ever going to, get to that point. So I agree with you on that. We do have super chats that are
chat. I think what's much more likely to happen is that the offense really picks up. And then Arch has a big season. And then I wonder when we get to the postseason, SEC championship game would be like a perfect idea of this too. It's when it's packed the most. Literally the portal is just opened up. And it's the week of like signing day, right? Like there's so much going on. And I wonder if when we get to when this season is ultimately defined by whatever it is, if that's when it pops its head up again. Right. And it becomes a big game thing versus a week in and week out thing. Because to me, that's to me the question. It is when Texas. So we're talking like 2 or 3 games a season, really.
Right. But when
in these games, that's where my concern is.
But then it's also, how do you dig through and say, okay, the failure, let's take whatever it is, the failure in the Washington game or the failure last year for, SEC title game, whichever game it is, if that's going on, can you directly connect it to the preparation because he's so distracted? Or is it about, no, he's sitting in the stadium making choices that aren't working at that moment that has nothing to do with transfer windows? Like, how do you make that distinction? He's the
only one that can really answer the question.
Yes. And would you say you trust him to assess it and make that choice?
No.
Because hasn't he shown us a little bit of it, right? Hasn't he shown us a little bit of the ability?
The ability to do so. I just think of all of the things that you could ask him to stop doing. I think this is the one that would be the last. I think it's so in his identity, and I don't think he thinks anybody would do it better than him.
Yeah, I totally believe. He could get himself into issues like the 2 guys I think of, Catch, that just grind on play calling last few years are Jimbo and Brian Kelly. But Brian Kelly doesn't call plays at LSU, technically. He oversees if he needs to, but he doesn't call plays at LSU right now. And then I'll argue Jimbo wanting to call plays ultimately gets him fired. It's not that drastic with Sark. But those are guys I think of as one of them was willing to give it up at one point. The other one just held on.
I think nationally, they wouldn't understand this conversation. Like if you were to have Pete Thamel watch this right now, they would think, oh my God, Orange Bloods is really overreacting that this is even a conversation. I don't think nationally. And I think that that's when it would have to be a thing.
Yeah.
I think this would be the kind of, again, if in December, First Take is talking about Arch Manning, and they're doing it through the prism of, is Steve Sarkeesian like the problem?
Is he the right guy or to develop? Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, nationwide, Texas was just preseason number 1. What they haven't been doing really nationwide is getting so into the weeds that they're saying things like, last year in the last 5 of the 6 toughest games of the season against quality defenses, they didn't score above 20. Like they're not doing that, right? Because that would require knowing, yes, they had 24 points in the first 60 minutes of the Arizona State game, but 7 of those didn't come from the offense. It's, the rest of the nation sees Steve Sarkeesian as an offensive genius, and they don't view him as the problem with Quinn. That's what Arch potentially. Look, one bad Arch performance, and on Wednesday we're having the should a change be made, could a change be made conversation. That is really more than anything else. There's something to be learned by even doing this show today in this capacity. It really shows what it means to have Arch Manning as the quarterback, because it would have sounded preposterous to do this last season. Everybody would have just said this is about Quinn Ewers. One really bad Arch Manning game. Sorry, Sark. It was really bad. And it's like, well, should there be a new OC? And I just think I don't think we're ever going to see it. But look, I don't dismiss that it could happen. But, I don't know. It's like, Jeff, are you going to give up air? Oh, yeah, no. Air. I'll give it up. I mean, I will one day give up air. It's true. So I hear. But I don't know. I'm telling you, I always think of that conversation that you and I did. I think of that Al Green conversation, right? Do you ever get tired? And I'll never forget how he answered, do I ever get tired of let's stay together? Do I get tired of let's stay together? And I think let's stay together is for Sark offensive play calling.
Right. But again, to make it more specific, what if Let's Stay Together was the worst song of the night and fans started bitching about it? That's a different discussion. What if his
Sark would fight us right now if we were in a room and
what if his biggest turned into a problem? I'm sorry. What if his baby turned into a problem?
Do we think it's a problem right now? Like, do we really? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the shit is on fire, and 1 being, hey, man, there's not even a match in the building. Where is it the concern for you?
Problem in terms of this OC thing, or problem in terms of he needs to deal with it?
However you want to answer it.
Okay. In terms of the OC discussion, no, it's like at a 2 or a 3. In terms of he's got to deal with it because it's staring him right in the face, it's like a 7 or an 8 right now, at least. And I'll keep saying I think he sees it wrong. That's the other thing that I think is problematic. He sees it wrong. He told us this week that he thinks it's because he was too cute in the past. I disagree, but we'll see what happens as he moves forward. All right. So real quick for Money B, I understand there were super chats that got missed yesterday. No, I don't have them. If that's what you're asking me, you got like 10 minutes if you want to throw them in today. I am sorry we missed some yesterday.
I had nothing to do with that, Money B. That was not on me. I was not here.
It had nothing to do, and this is back from Monday, so it had nothing to do with Ketch making his weird soccer argument at the end of the show. That had nothing to do with that. $9.99 from Darian. This is clever. Buy or sell. Quinn Ewers has a better college career and gets drafted higher had he stayed at Ohio State.
I'm going to say sell. He would have gotten benched. They would not have viewed Quinn Ewers the way Texas viewed Quinn Ewers. They just would have moved on and brought somebody else in.
It's an interesting way to look at that one. I like that. How about another $9.99 from Brad? Give us your scoring average and average winning differential over the next 3 games needed for you to confidently say the team is on track. Catch, yesterday, Jason and I were talking about it, and we put out the argument that they need to score 40, 50, and 60 in these next 3 games. Like somewhere in the 3, a 40-pointer, a 50-pointer, a 60-pointer. That's kind of the way we looked at it.
Probably. I don't need to see points like that because I think that can be superficial. I need to see the game slow down for Arch. I need to see his mechanics come back in a way that when we get to week 5, we're not still talking about he looks like Quinn Ewers. I don't want to see sidearm Patrick Mahomes impersonations, right? I want what Arch is supposed to be. So I want to see young guys make plays. Like it really is less about scoring average and point differential for me because I don't expect the Texas defense to give up. They might not give up 20 combined points in the next 3 games. Seriously. There could genuinely be a shutout somewhere in there. And then 20 points combined for the other 2. That doesn't sound crazy. So, they could have a point differential of 40 plus points over the course of, I always remember, I think it was 2003. Texas played like La Monroe and they beat them like 66-6 or something like that. Do you remember that game, Chad?
Sounds kind of familiar, yeah.
And it was just they scored on so many big plays. Big play left and right and special teams and defense. And they got to 66, but almost like 4 touchdowns were not scored by the offense. It just felt like, oh my God. And I remember, ironically enough, I'm walking from DKR and I called Bobby Burton. And Bobby and I were on the phone, and I'll just never forget. Bobby was like, holy hell, this team is incredibly talented. You know what I mean? Like the impact of like what we saw in that game. Then you know what happened next week? Arkansas came to town.
Oh, damn.
Literally the next week.
The Matt Jones Arkansas game?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
And so for the last 22 years, that has served as the example of, I don't really make a whole lot out of what we see in these games. It's really about trying to avoid coming out of games, seeing things you didn't want to see. So I don't need to tell you what I want to see. I can tell you a whole bunch of what I don't want to see. And if we get out of the games and we're not talking about, hey, I'll give you an example. Here's the running back position. How about somebody break off a big one? How about we get through September and it's like, you know what? I don't think this is the most explosive running back group of all time, but they had a 60-yarder and a 50-yarder. So, like, they got some wheels. Let's not go through entire games in this sludge of games where it's, look, the only running back last year that averaged more than 5 yards per carry when the season was over was Colin Page, the walk-on. So these are the kind of games. Stack it up. Yeah. Come out of September averaging 9 yards a carry. And then as you regress to the mean, you can stay above the Mendoza line. But I'm fearful that when this is over with, we're going to get to the end of September and it's still a whole bunch of 4.5 and 4.8 and not a lot of explosive yards.
Money B, thank you for doing this work for us. Super chat from Barb's 10 yesterday. Buy or sell, golden and blue changed the outcome of that game. Good Lord, buy. My take, no wide receiver separation, no elite speed out of the backfield. Injuries can be special. That's a mega buy for me, Catch.
For sure.
Golly, yeah. It's a good one. Thanks also, Money B ran this one down from Cotton from yesterday, $4.99. What would help more for Arch? Film session with Sark or a session with Peyton and Eli? Oh, my God. Come on.
Just a second game.
Sark 10 times out of 10. Sark. Come on.
Okay. I'll go Peyton and Eli, not just for this unorthodox reason, Chad.
Okay.
I think just to break the monotony, like maybe what would help Arch is to sit down with two guys while sitting and watching video who just give him a different voice and say, hey, it's okay, kid. Like, they'd say the same thing Sark is saying, but it would just come from Peyton and Eli, and it would be less about film session and maybe more about, a day with two guys that really know what he's doing and going through that can connect with him. And like, that couldn't hurt, but like, it's not anti-Sark or anything as much as didn't sound like an unhealthy thing that if you could sneak in something like that, it probably wouldn't hurt.
All right. Longhorn football edits, $5. Buy or sell. Sark keeps Arch in the game longer than usual this week.
Now that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to say sell.
Yeah. I'd say it's a possibility of a buy. Just if he feels like he needs a little rhythm, I could see it.
Let me tell you why I think it's a sell. Because I think they're going to want to get Matthew Caldwell in the game in the third quarter so they can get KJ Lacey in the fourth and let KJ Lacey. We know KJ Lacey can play 4 times. Actually, didn't they bump that thing up to 6?
I don't recall that. I thought it was still at 4.
I'll have to look that up. Maybe it is at 4, but we know that they have a handful of games they can play with. This is one where they're going to get KJ Lacey some reps, I think. And as someone that's convinced that if I've said it before, but if anything crazy were to happen to Arch, man, I really think KJ Lacey's your backup quarterback in a world where there's no red shirt to worry about. I think sooner rather than later, he's the number 2. So if you think that that's even a possibility, you got to go do it now.
Yep. All right. One more super chat here. $4.99. Sark called plays that had receivers running wide open and Arch was unable to hit them. Sorry. Quarterback play is the problem, not the OC. All right, Brady.
I would just say I live in a world where both things can be not mutually exclusive of each other.
One game in, huh? One game.
All right, Chad, I see the clock. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, I'll just throw this up as we get out. Check out Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Get all that stuff figured out with snoring and sleep apnea and all that good stuff. Thank y'all for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications and helping those subscriber numbers climb.